Good morning. This is Sunday, June 23rd of 2024. Okay, got it. My name is Douglas Griffin. This is my Sunday school class. 4 years ago, we started the book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. Now we're in the book of Numbers. Uh, Today, I think we're in Numbers chapter 12. And the children of Israel, as we know, have been brought out of the land of Egypt, brought to Mount Sinai, where they sinned immediately. And so God chose to give them the law. Here's the law. I'm going to give you this law so I don't have to destroy you, that you're not just doing crazy stuff. Okay? He, again, does not cover every sin that they were ever going to do, not his purpose. Ah, oh, okay. I think we're in Numbers 11, Numbers chapter 11. Um, but these are the major things that I need you to understand regarding how to worship me because they've been raised up on a bunch of other gods. So you need to, gods that don't exist, you need to have a relationship with a real God and understand um, who I am and how to trust me. And again, the fake gods that they've been worshiping for a couple hundred years in Egypt and that all the other nations worshiped, and no one worshiped the real God. Uh, since they were fake, they made up their own rules in their heads about these gods, and they didn't know that there was someone, a real person that you had to listen to and obey, and that meant what he said. So I'm going to teach you how to worship me, how to love your neighbor, and how to love yourself so that I can preserve you alive because through you, I'm going to bless the rest of the world. And it was never a religion meant just for the Israelites. It was always a religion meant for the whole world. But I need to give the world an example of a people who follow me so they could look at their lives and look at your lives and go, okay, there's clearly a difference. They must serve the real God. They must serve the true God. He wants the same for us today as Christians. Not that we never go through problems, but that we have a different type of relationship so that people can look at it. Well, you look how calm you were doing that. How did you know that was all going to work out? Well, because I serve a real God. He's really real. So I'm going to use these people, right? And I'm going to take you back to Canaan. That was the goal. They never should have moved to Egypt. They were supposed to go there for a time period, go to Egypt for 5 years during the famine, just like every other nation came. And every other nation was supposed to come to Egypt and go, how did Egypt know? How did they know? Oh, well, the God of these Israelites, they warned them about this famine. And so they must serve a real God. Then they were supposed to go back, but they chose to stay. They didn't want to stay where God set them. So they now for the next 200 years they're in bondage in Egypt. When we're not where we're supposed to be, we become in bondage to this place where we're not supposed to be. And God finally will move us to the place where we're supposed to be, right? So now he's ready. They're ready. They're on the move. We're ready to go. So they set out at the very end of Numbers chapter 10. They leave Mount Sinai. They've been there a year and they're on their way, a couple weeks journey uh, from Saudi Arabia up through Jordan, the area where, well, it's in the news today, but Hezbollah and that area, and then they're supposed to cross the Jordan and go into Israel. However, 3 days in to their walk, they've only been it's the third day that they left Mount Sinai. In Numbers chapter 11, verse 1, it says, now when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, for the Lord heard it, and his anger was aroused. So they're complaining. Now, the people had complained before, but now his anger's aroused. And let's look at the difference because this is not, I wonder why God did that. Well, if we can remember what had happened before, it's easy to see why God did that. In Exodus chapter 15, verse 22, it says, So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. So God parts the Red Sea, does a big miracle. He parts the Red Sea, says he brought them from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they were 3 days in the wilderness, and they found no water. So on the third day, their water supplies have run out. So this God who parted the Red Sea, they're assuming, hey, God, you forgot. Hello, duh. And they're mad at God. Even though they've just seen all these incredible miracles, locusts, and all this stuff happened in Egypt, and they were spared, and God supplied their needs. When they find no water supply, they're complaining because they think God has forgotten them. Verse 23, now when they came to Marah, so they come to this place where there is some water, it says they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. So their response has to be, let's go to God and ask God, hey, God, we know that you have provided for us because you've done nothing for provide for us for the past 200 years while we're in Egypt. You provided for us all during those plagues. So we're coming to you with thanksgiving, thanking you that somewhere you're going to lead us to. Nope, that's not what happened. When they saw that the waters were bitter, and it says, therefore the name it was called Mara, which means bitter, the people complained against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? Like, come on now, as though God has forgotten. Like, God's going, uh-oh, I didn't know you're going to go there. So Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which he cast into the waters, and the waters were made sweet. So the water was diseased, and when they put the tree in the water, suddenly all of the disease left. It's like the tree collected all of the filth, all of the germs went into the tree. Like you might put a sponge in water and it collects all the dirty. Which is symbolic later because Jesus died on the tree and he took all of our sins on us and we were all cleansed. Um, but then he made a statute there, a law. He made a ordinance so they can remember. It says in an ordinance for them, and there he tested them. And he said, if you diligently heed the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you which I brought in the Egyptians. For I'm the Lord who heals you. So yeah, had you tasted that water, it would have made you sick. But now I've healed it. And if you continue just to follow my voice, go to me and say, hey, Lord, what's the provision? What's the way out of the situation? Instead of complaining like I'm stupid, then I will heal you. Verse 27, then they came to Elim, which is right next door, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. And so they camped there by the waters. So had they just simply kept going, they just had to keep, they got to Marah, they thought, oh, when we get to Marah, then we'll drink that water. And because their expectation wasn't met, then they complained, not knowing, well, had you just gone 40 more feet, you would have found all these, there were 12 wells, there's plenty of water. And so our problem is we have expectations that God's going to solve something in a certain way. And when he doesn't solve it in that way, then we're upset. We're mad. We're disappointed. Oh, I can't believe it. God is going to solve it. He's just going to solve it in his way. We just have to keep trusting him. And it's a matter of, for as far as God is concerned, do you trust me or not? Do you think I've suddenly gone to sleep, that I've left, that I don't like you? Because that's what faith is. Faith is believing that God is going to come through in some form or other. And therefore not complaining and not doing some crazy thing. In Exodus chapter 16, verse 1, it says, and they journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of Israel came to the wilderness of Zin, and which is between Elim and Sinai. So they're on their way to Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after they departed from the land of Egypt, they didn't get to Sinai until the third month. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained. He just met their need. They went to the next place. They complained again against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full, for you brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. It was just simply the next day. God had just met their need. And they complained again. And I wish we were back in Egypt. Although for 200 years they complained, Lord, well, break this bondage to Egypt. They really liked them some Egypt. They didn't really want to leave Egypt. They just didn't want to be slaves in Egypt. We had meat, we had fish, we had all this great stuff. I can't believe it. Now you're trying to kill us. And they're like God is an idiot. God doesn't punish them. God doesn't get mad. Then God says to Moses, okay, behold, I will bring bread from heaven for you. And the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day. So I was going to lead you to each new thing. When you get here, here's going to be some food. And when you get there, it's going to be something different every day. Every day, there's going to be some new thing, new way I was going to meet your need, because that's how God works. But you don't want that. So I'm going to give you the same bread every day then. You'll have bread, you'll have manna every day. Nothing new. It'll be on a schedule. You won't have to use your faith. This actually is punishment, but you won't have to. I'll just keep you. Now, every morning it'll be there. So you don't have to panic and freak out. Oh, as though I've suddenly am stupid and forgotten. Jesus had the same problem with the disciples, like after he fed the 5,000, and then the disciples were, what are we going to do tomorrow for food? And Jesus is like, did you learn nothing from I just fed 5,000 people. You don't think I can do it again? But again, that's how we are. God does come through for us, but we forget. We forget. We don't attribute our life to God. We beg Him like, oh, Lord, please come through, and like you're begging me, like you have to beg me in order to do it. Not that understanding that I do it every day. Okay. Verse 4, then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I will bring bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, that I may test them. Again, whether they will walk in my law or not. Meaning, are they going to do what I ask them to do? When I say, go 20 more feet, am I going to go 40 more? Are they going to go, no, we refuse to go forward until you first show us why, until you first. Are you going to be obedient to me? After all, you see this cloud every day that I'm leading you, and by night there's a cloud of fire. I'm here every day. It's not like in our lives, we're like, okay, Lord, I know you're there. They literally could see God. Okay. Verse 5 says, it should be on the sixth day, so every day, they shall prepare what they bring in, and it should be twice as much as they gather daily. So I'm going to feed you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On the Sabbath, I'll give you enough for Sunday also. So you don't even have to work on the seventh day. It should be twice as much as together. Also, in order to confirm this, I'm going to give you a one-time thing of quail. In verse 13, so it says, so it was that quail came up at evening and covered the camp. And in the morning, the dew lay all around the camp. So when the dew would dry, it would be like this thin meal that they would turn and make into bread. So I gave them quail at night, one time. But every day I'm feeding you with manna. And when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance, as fine as frost on the ground. So when the children of Israel saw it, they said to another, what is it? They said the word manna. That's what manna means. What is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, this is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. You're going to eat this every day. Every day for the next 40 years. They didn't know it was going to be 40 years. They finally get to Sinai. And again, God's being patient. They finally get to Mount Sinai. Moses goes up the mountain for 40 days, and the people panic again. Even though they can see the cloud and the thunder and the lightning, we better make an idol and go back to Egypt. And God is, I'm going to punish them. But he comes down. God forgives them. There's Day of Atonement, etc. Some were punished, but not the whole group, the small percentage. And in verse 34 of Exodus 32, it says, now therefore go, lead the people to the place which I have spoken to you. So now you're going to go. Of course, we're going to build this tabernacle first. But behold, my angel, my messenger shall go before you. This cloud will go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I do visit my punishment, I will visit punishment on them for their sin. So I've this 3 times in a row, at least 3 times that I've spoken, that God has not said anything. I'll just provide the. So they've been there for a year. God's been meeting their needs for a year. They're finally ready to leave Mount Sinai and go, and they complained. And so God had already warned them. Next time I'm going to punish you. So, in Numbers chapter 11, verse 1. So the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some in the outskirts of the camp because they're complaining. Now, the people in the outskirts are the ones leading the complaining. The tribe of Dan and Asher and Naphtali. Uh, those tribes, and it's probably Dan, a lot of the rabbis and stuff think it was tribe of Dan leading the complaining because Dan, there was always a problem with Dan. And also there was a mixed multitude of people who were part Jewish, part Egyptian, etc., from other places. They're complaining. So the fire falls on them, not everybody else, just on the people on the outskirts. As a warning, don't pick up their habits. They're complaining. Even though I have fed them every day, they've been here for a year. They're complaining. Don't like it. I warned them. Now there's going to be punishment. Verse 2. The people cried out to Moses. I can't believe that God punished these people just because we're complaining and telling God that he's stupid and that we have no faith in him. And I don't understand why he punished us. So when Moses prayed to the Lord, the fire was quenched because he's teaching Moses intercession, right? Okay. So he called the name of the place Taberah, which means burning, because the fire Lord had burned among them. Verse 4. Now, when the mixed multitude who were among them, so that's why I think it was the tribe of Dan, even though there were some of the mixed multitude. And just remember that this mixed multitude came with them when they left Egypt. In Exodus chapter 12, verse 37, it says, Then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth. Ramesses was the name of the major city in Egypt. And people loaded them up with stuff. So when they first journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, that was their first stop, because I think it took 3 days to get to the Red Sea. About 600,000 men on foot, not including the children, not including the women. Verse 38 says, And a mixed multitude went up with them also, and flocks and herds, and a great deal of livestock. So they've got flocks and herds. They've got sheep, goats, um, bulls, cows. They've got all that. That's how they're doing the daily sacrifice. But God's not letting them use their livestock because he's saving it for the sacrifice. So they've got flocks and herds. So the people are complaining, why can't we use these livestock? You're making us atone for our sin. Why is that important? And God's like, just do what I say. I will provide you with food, but you're saving this livestock. You got to save it. You can't use it because you're sinning every day, and I'm teaching you how to come to me and how to pray and how to talk to me and how to and understand this concept of sin, which apparently you don't understand. So they couldn't use it. So the mixed multitude has their livestock, and they're like, I can't believe this God. So in Numbers chapter 11, verse 4, it says, the mixed multitude yielded to intense craving. Like, oh my God, I really want some. I'm tired of this manna. Now, they had the manna. It was their own fault that they had the manna. They kept complaining every day. The next day, where's the food? Give me a minute. Could you imagine a child getting up every morning, waking up his parents, and where's the food? Why don't you ever feed me? I fed you every day. You're gonna wake me up and already start complaining and tell me that I'm not a good parent? Are you out of your mind? So here's manna. You have manna every day. Now you don't have to complain anymore. That's what you wanted. You didn't want to have faith and wait till I prepared the table before you. You wanted to already know. So now when you wake up, it's already there. That's what you wanted. So the mixed multitude's complaining. And it says, so the children of Israel also wept again. Now this time it spread. It wasn't just people on the outskirts. It spread to the camp. And they said, who will give us meat to eat? We remember the fish that we ate freely in Egypt. This is verse 5. The cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Egypt was great. And that's how we look back on. We forget how horrible certain things were and that we were crying out every day. And I hate this. We just remember the good time. That was really great. We had fish from the Nile and onions and cucumbers. But now our whole being is dried up. There's nothing at all except this manna. Ugh. But that's what you wanted because you didn't want to trust me. Now, Numbers chapter 11, verse 7 says, now the manna was like coriander seed, and its color was like the color of Delim. And the people went about and gathered it and ground it on millstones or beat it on the mortar and cooked it in pans and made cakes of it. And its taste was like the taste of pastry prepared with oil. So it wasn't nasty, but it was the same meal every day because they did not want to trust God. I want a routine, God. I don't want to have to trust you. I'm going to get up and it's already there. So that's what I'm doing for you. So you stop complaining. Now you're complaining you wish you were back in Egypt and having fish. Okay. And they're crying like God's doing some horrible thing to them, even though they're on their way to the land of milk and honey. That if you can just wait a week, I'm going to bring you, like it's literally a week, into Israel, and you'll have all of this stuff. So, verse 10, then Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, everyone at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused because they're so upset they're crying. I can't believe God is making us eat this manna. And Moses has just said, we're on our way to Israel where there'll be everything you need. Well, I can't wait a week of all this food. I'm sick. God doesn't know what he's doing. So Moses was also displeased. So Moses said to the Lord, why have you afflicted your servant? Because the people are complaining to Moses. Why have you afflicted your servant? Now he's complaining to God. Why have you put me in this position? Why have I not found favor in your sight that you have laid the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive these people? They're not my children. Did I begat them that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a guardian carries a nursing child to the land which you swore to their father? I have to put up these people for the next week. And I'm telling you, it's like 7 days they're going to be where they're supposed to be in crossover. I can't take it. Well, sometimes you have to take it. Where am I to get meat to give all these people? And so he's questioning God. They want meat, for they weep all over me, saying, give us meat that we may eat. I'm not able to bear all these people alone. I'm alone. It's just me. No, it wasn't just him. It's just me because the burden is too heavy for me. If you treat me like this, please kill me here and now. If I have found favor in your sight, if you love me, kill me. And do not let me see my wretchedness because I can't take it. Just kill me now. Now, there's someone else. I just want to read this story because it's at the same kind of situation. Elijah has just gone out and killed all the prophets of Baal, and Jezebel was not happy about that. In 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 1, it says, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, also how he executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so let the gods do to me and more also if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. You kill all my prophets, you're going to be dead by tomorrow. Now, he panics. And when he saw that, he rose and ran for his life and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servants there. So, but he himself went a day's journey to the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die and said, it is enough now, Lord, take my life, for I'm no better than my fathers. My fathers suffered in the wilderness and I'm suffering, so kill me now. So he's saying the exact same thing as Moses. I've got this burden. It's just me. I'm all by myself. I can't believe it. In verse 10, it says, so he said, I have been zealous for the Lord of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, and they've torn down your altars, and they've killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone am left, and they seek to take my life, and I can't, oh, what's wrong? Because Jezebel's stronger than you, God, apparently. And if Jezebel said it, I'm scared, because I guess she's big in Elijah's mind. So I'm all by myself, kill me now. This is what Moses is saying to God. I'm all by myself, kill me now. And you know that Elijah ended up like going to the same mountain that Moses was when Moses said this. And they're both crying and weeping. I'm all by myself. I can't believe it. You've given me all this responsibility. Ironically, but there's a reason for it, in Mark, we see Moses and Elijah. In the New Testament, when Jesus shows up, in Mark chapter 9, verse 2, it says, now after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up on a high mountain apart all by themselves, and he was transfigured before them. His clothes became shining, exceedingly white like snow, such as no launder on earth can whiten them. And Elijah appeared to them with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. So this is Elijah and Moses. And the two complainers, kill me now, I can't take it. Why are you put all this burden on me? Well, through a process of time, they were healed. They came to understand their purpose, and they weren't all by themselves, and they understand why God had singled them out. And now they're here talking to Jesus, advising him at a time when Jesus could have thought, I'm all alone. And Jesus really was all alone. No one, his own disciples didn't understand him, you know. Uh, and so there's a reason why Elijah and Moses are talking to Jesus, not because Jesus needed a pep talk, but this was symbolic for the disciples who were watching. And I'm going to actually be teaching on this on Wednesday, so I'll just wait till then. So Elijah, Moses, I'm all alone. Moses saying, kill me, kill me. Numbers chapter 16. So the Lord said to Moses, okay, gather 70 men. You think you're all by themselves. Gather 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be elders of the people, officers over them. Bring them to the tabernacle of meeting, that they may stand with you here. I don't know if this was the same 70 that he had to be judges, or this is a different 70, if there's some overlap. But bring the elders, because you're not that. You think, oh, I've got to do it all by myself, and you don't, but you think you do, but you're never all by yourself. So he brings them. God says the same thing to Elijah, except he says, I've got 7,000, not just 70. Not 710, but 7,000. In 1 Kings 19:18 says, I've reserved 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. So you're not all by yourself. He says same thing to Moses, go get the elders, please. Verse 17, Moses says, then I will come down, I will talk with you there, I will take the spirit that is on you, and I put some on them. I'll put the same, upon them. So and the spirit of counsel and spirit of might would come on Moses when he had to make these decisions and how to counsel people. He says, I'll put that same spirit on them. Let them go out. Let them talk to the people. You're not by yourself. You never were. I'd already given you 70, but you forgot about them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with you, that you may not bear it yourself alone. And basically, he's going to give a sign so that the people know to trust his judges. In 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 9, this transferring of, I'm going to put the same spirit that's on this person, on the other person. They're going to have the same sort of ministry, the same sort of ministry gift. It says, and so it was when they had crossed over that Elijah said to Elisha, ask, what may I do for you before I am taken away from you? And Elijah said, please let a double portion of your spirit be up on me. The same sort of thing. I want to have that same sort of ministry that you do. Different people in the Bible had different ministries. The disciples had different ministries. When there was disciples who were good at getting people saved after Jesus was resurrected. There are other disciples who were good at getting them filled with the Holy Spirit. There are disciples who were good at teaching. He gave some prophets, but they all had different ministries, right? But in this case, God is saying, I'm going to put the exact same anointing that's on you, will be on them. And the people will see it and they'll understand I can go to them and I'll get the same sort of wisdom. Elisha wanted the exact same sort of ministry that Elijah had. So Numbers chapter 11, verse 18. Then you'll be able to say to the people, concentrate yourself so tomorrow and you shall eat meat. So you want meat? I'm going to give you meat. For you have wept in the hearing of the Lord. You were so upset that I'm so feeble and I'm so stupid that you cried because I've treated you so badly, even though I delivered you from the Egyptians and let you pass through the Red Sea and I've clothed you. Your sandals haven't worn out. But oh my, I'm such a mess up that you've actually been crying because your lives are so horrible. Saying, who will give us meat? For it was well with us back in Egypt. Therefore the Lord will give you meat and you'll eat it, he says. Verse 19, and you'll eat not 1 day, not 2 days, not 5 days, nor 10, not in 20 days. Verse 20, but for a whole month until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you because you've despised the Lord who is among you and have wept before him saying, why did we ever come out of Egypt? Which is just crazy that you, for 200 years, deliver. So I deliver you and now I can't believe you took us out of Egypt. and you think I'm stupid, and you think your plan is better than my plan, and you'd rather be back there than with me who's rescuing you and save you. And that's how we despise the Lord. Like, Lord, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know. I hate this life that you gave. This is terrible. This is the worst. I wish I had a whole different life. Okay, you're despising that life. Okay, because you don't think I know what I'm doing. Fine. Verse 21, and Moses said, the people whom I am among are 600,000 men on foot. Yet you said, I will give them meat that they may eat for a whole month. Shall flocks and herds be slaughtered for them to provide enough for them? Are we supposed to, because we're supposed to just, we're saving these sheep and goats and lambs for our sacrifice to give to you every day. We're supposed to come to you. Where's this meat going to come from? Or shall all the fish of the sea be gathered together for them to provide enough for them? There's 600,000 people. Verse 23, the Lord said to Moses, has the Lord's arm been shortened? All these miracles I've done, you think suddenly I'm that guy with that really short arm that he can't reach anymore? Now you shall see whether what I say will happen to you or not. So just shut up, Moses, and you'll see whether I know what I'm talking about or not. That's all you have to do. Just shut up, then you'll see. Okay, verse 24. So Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and he gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people and placed them around the tabernacle. So everybody's watching, everybody's in the camp, but they've come to the tabernacle, which is in the center, and the 70 people are around it. Then the Lord came down in the cloud, and he spoke to him, and he took the spirit that was upon Moses and placed the same upon the 70 elders. So there's 70, they're all around the temple. Everybody can see them. And it happened when the spirit rested upon them that they prophesied, although they never did it again. So they're speaking forth God. They could see that suddenly God's words and his thoughts, and they began to prophesy as a sign to the people. He says they never did it again. So we have certain experiences, and we think we have to have that every time we try to duplicate it over and over and over again, and you don't have to. God didn't. I don't have to do this. I'm just doing this as a sign so that people know, oh, we can trust these people because we've seen Moses prophesy. Now we're seeing them prophesy, so we don't have to burden Moses. We can go to them. For Numbers 11, chapter 26, it says, but 2 men had remained in the camp. I don't know what they're doing. The Bible doesn't say what they were doing, but they didn't make it to the temple, but they were on the list of that Moses had made a list of. These are the 70 elders that I trust. 2 men remained in the camp. The name of one was Eldad. The name of the other was Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them. Now they were among those listed. So Moses made a literal list of people. These are the 70. Go out and find them. They were on that list of 70, but something kept them in the camp and they weren't able to make it. And a young man ran and told Moses, some kid ran and told Moses and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp, because they didn't have to be, they were still chosen. They didn't have to be at the temple. God was able to, oh, but I can't make that church meeting tonight, so God's not going to bless me. I can bless you at your house. My arm's not short. I can really do this thing. It's okay. So Joshua, the son of Nun, who was young, is Moses' assistant. One of his choice men answered and said, Moses, my Lord, you got to stop them. Now, in Mark chapter 9, the disciples came to Jesus and basically said the same thing. Verse 38, because Jesus had sent them out and given them the ability to cast out demons in his name. And it says, now John answered him saying, Teacher, we saw someone who does not follow us casting out demons in your name. And we forbade him because he does not follow us. Doesn't walk with us. He's over there. He's not one of us. But Jesus said, do not forbid him. For no one who works a miracle in my name can soon afterwards speak evil of me. It's not like he's against me. In fact, he says, for he who's not against us is on our side. So he believes, and he's using the same authority that I gave to you. He's using it. It's okay. You don't have to stop him. He's doing good. Well, he's not one of us. And the Bible's always been against sectarianism and saying, well, you're not with us. You don't worship the way we worship. You don't go to our church. So we don't believe in you and what you're doing. And God's like, no, look at the results. Just because they don't do it exactly the same way, or they don't dress the same way that you do, or they don't come to the same service that you do, look at are people getting saved? Are people getting helped? Okay, then stop being against them. So back to Moses. So Moses said to him, to Joshua, you got to stop him. They're prophesying. Are you zealous for my sake? oh, that all the Lord's people were prophets and that the Lord would put the Spirit upon. I wish everybody would be prophesying instead of acting so crazy. And Moses returned to the camp, he and the elders of Israel. So then they went back to the people. And now the people said, okay, we can complain to these people. So they still complained, but they didn't have to all complain. 600,000 people complained to Moses. Now, a wind went out from the Lord, and it brought quail from the sea. And it left them fluttering near the camp. So they're near this ocean. eh, and it left them fluttering near the camp about a day's journey on this side, about a day's journey on the other side. So they weren't right next to the sea, but they were near enough that these quail are now surrounding them on either side of the camp, and about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground. So that's how thick they were, about 3 feet thick, just quails suddenly there. And the people stayed up all that day and all night and all the next day and gathered the quail. In fact, he that gathered the least gathered 10 homers, which is about 100 bushels of quail. And they spread them out, and they're drying them on the ground, which is the way that they learned in Egypt to dry fish and let the sun dry the fish. And so they've got all this quail. They've got so much quail. And they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed. Now this word chewed means before it was, literally they said before it was cut off. And I think, because he said he was going to do this for a month. Before the time was cut off, the month was over. Uh, some people think that before they got a chance to even chew it. But God said, they're going to have, for a month, you're going to have so much quail, you're going to get sick of it. It says, the wrath of the Lord was aroused against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very great plague. They got sick from all this quail. Now, in Psalms 106, verse 14, when David's describing what had happened, it says, they lusted exceedingly in the wilderness and tested God in the desert. He gave them their request, but sent leanness into their soul, that it no longer gave them any nutritional value. It just made them sick after a while. They weren't getting the richness from it they were initially gotten to, and it made them sick. In Psalm 78, he's talking about the same thing. Verse 31, the wrath of God came against them and slew the stoutest of them, the biggest, the fattest, literally means the fattest, because they were stuffing themselves, and struck down the choice men of Israel, because the people were just greedy with it, and they started to make them sick. In spite of this, they still sinned. It says in Psalm 78, verse 32, in spite of this, they still sinned and did not believe in his wondrous works. We want quail. I'm gonna give you some quail. You get sick of it. We want manna. Now we're sick of manna. They still sinned in that they kept doubting him and they kept complaining. It didn't matter what God did. They had the inability to look at their life and say, "Look how you've been providing for me, God. I'm going to be satisfied with it. I'm going to be content." No, I'm going to complain every day because I don't have this and I don't have that and I can't believe it. As opposed to, Lord, I thank you. You're solving it. You're working it out. God's aware that that we don't immediately see the answer. He would love us just to say, even though I don't immediately see the answer, I know there is an answer. I know that you're going to work it out. Even though I thought you were going to work it out in this way, that's my bad for already deciding that I know more than you and how you should work it out. I'm sure there's another way you're going to work it out, but I trust you. That's all God wants from us, as opposed to, I can't believe this, Lord. We're crying like God forgot how to do stuff, and that we don't trust him, and that we think he's evil and about to pull the rug out from under us and switch up. And so that frustrates God, like any parent would be, any child comes to him, to that parent, and say, I can't believe, why aren't you going to feed me today? Like, I feed you every day. Have you gone crazy? You lost your mind? No, you hate me. And it's like, wow, I clothed you every day. What is going on with you? So he called the name of that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because they buried the people who had yielded to craving, the people who just got fat and greedy with it, and went. Everybody didn't die, but some people were just nuts because they ate it like they were afraid they weren't going to eat tomorrow. This won't be here tomorrow. I'm going to eat all day, and they made themselves fat until they got sick. It was because that's a panic sort of thing. I've got to hoard all this money because I won't have any more money tomorrow. I've got to remember the parable of the rich man who kept filling up his warehouses, and God said, and you never gave that out because you thought Lazarus and the rich man, you never fed Lazarus, because you think, I got to hold on to all this right now. If I don't hold on to it, I'll be gone tomorrow, because you don't think I'm going to supply you tomorrow. So that's how they were. So they buried them there. From Kibroth Hatava, the people moved to Hazeroth and camped at Hazeroth. So he's just giving, and the next thing's going to happen there, involving Miriam and Aaron. So I'm going to stop there. But God's wanting us to learn the lesson. Again, we recognize when things are not going the way we planned. We recognize when things are not like we expected, and there seems to be lack. But what is our prayer to Him? How do we approach Him? Like He's stupid? Do we weep like He's forgotten how to meet our needs? Or do we go to Him with thanksgiving and say, Lord, I know you're going to come up with something. I don't know how. I'm nervous. I'm scared, but I know you're going to do something. That's all He wants, as opposed to this attitude where we act like He is an idiot and doesn't know what He's doing. He's never done this before. He's been doing this for a while. Okay, so that's why He complained. That's why they complained in the wilderness, because thought God had forgotten how to be God. And we don't want to be like that. So I'm going to end there. We'll start with Numbers chapter 12 next week. This, in an hour or so, I will be preaching at my church for the two of you who um, want to watch. Um, from Second Samuel, where the three-parter on David and Bathsheba is finally part 3 today. We end the saga of David and Bathsheba. And everyone else, we'll see you on Wednesdays where we're going through the book of Luke. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. All right, bye-bye.